No.
It's with
It's
her.
it's well, no. Before it does, it counts too. It's you. What would you?
How did you
If you
go
have
into
to help
business? What made
Marissa
you
one
go into
day
business?
about to open her own business, what advice would you give her,
Give her?
Marissa?
Oh, Marissa?
Yeah.
I would tell her just to get a doctorate and keep going.
Talk about when you
Get
started.
into a field, and then once you're in that field, learn it well, and then go off on your own. So, but first, learn your field, learn your business.
Well, when you started, what field did you understand best?
Well,
We did go to college.
I went to school, and as soon as I got out of college, I went right into the service. And then after that, I came back, and I would have to go back to school to refresh myself to get any kind of a decent job. And my brother and another fellow were opening a business and asked me if I wished to join them. And I thought it over and I said, why not give it a shot and let's do it. And that's what we did, and that's how I started out into business without using my college degree, but at the same time, I always used it as a backup, accounting and how to run the back office part of any kind of a business, especially mine. So that's how we started.
And you also started by not putting in any money, and you just.
Well, yeah, there wasn't no cash involved. I just put my labor in and took a very small salary. Unbelievably, it was $1 an hour.
$1 an hour.
That was true, yeah.
Wow.
But they gave me a place. I got a little a room somewhere near the place, and it was open 12 hours a day, so I could make $12 a day.
So, was there a time that you were going to think about going to some corporate company versus this?
Not really, because I just fell into this sideways. And I figured at the end of the year, my deal was whatever the profits were, I would share in it. 1/3, there were 3 people, so I got my money that way. And that gave me enough funds over the next 2-3 years to open my own establishment, which I did. And,
was there ever a thought of going to something else before rather than opening your own?
No, because in those days, I listened to my dad, and he said, always go into business for yourself if possible. And don't work for others. So I didn't work for others.
And why do you think he said that? I mean, some of it's obvious.
Well, because of his background, he found out that it was best for him to work on his own and to build a business instead of, if you work for someone has to make a profit on you. And that's fine in the fields today. But in those days, it was, if you could go on your own and succeed, you'd be better off.
This is the feeling of most immigrant
It was the era.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they didn't have any openings really for in big corporations for Jewish young men. There was a quota, and this way it was like the old-fashioned Jewish way of being your own boss.
That's right. We were basically still traders in order to make a living. Although in those days, in my time, you could become a lawyer, a doctor.
Yeah, but he's talking about corporate, going into business, your type of business, but in a big corporate. You did.
I did actually. Come to think of it, when I got out of the service, my first job was with a store in the Bronx. What was the name of it? AV. Very big. The people from that store, I eventually that closed. It was a department store chain, and I worked there for 6 months, and I did learn a lot. And I guess that got me into retail also. And
then they wanted you to come work for them.
Alexander's in the Bronx. That was the name of it. Alexander's.
Very big.
And there are 2 families, and one was the Farkas family, and they're very big in New York, real estate today and everything. And the other was the Schwadron family, and they became two guys from Harrison, and they became Vornado, which is also a huge real estate conglomerate. So they were very successful. And I learned a lot from the boys. I was friendly with them. They were all my age group.
So then were you approached by Marty and the other partner?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, they were just thinking about it, and nobody pushed me, but I mentioned it.
At that point,
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I thought I'd like to try the entrepreneurship way.
at that point, one partner was a salesman for a very big jacket company.
Firework company.
Yeah, and Marty was a manufacturer, small manufacturer of men's trousers.
Right.
That's their background.
And they could put it in inventory at low price points.
So then you decided to go in on your own, and you had to go through that, and you had to, get capital or however to figure
Well, I
it
had
out.
enough capital when we finally dissolved our business, and they gave me just enough capital to open my own establishment. So I opened that business in a small town, and practically paid no rent, $75 a month. And just happy to have someone come in, White House Station, New Jersey, believe it or not.
At that time, you were still with
And
Marty.
I made a living the first year, was all I could tell you. And I did pretty nicely for a couple of years. And then I had an opportunity to expand in another area called Hillsborough. And I took advantage of that and asked my spouse if she would care to come in because it was too big for me. And we would be more of a family junior department store. And that's what we did.
How did you know was the time to expand?
What?
How did you know was the time to expand? When did you feel like
Well,
this
I
is the
had
time?
enough inventory and capital behind me to be able to do such a thing. I had credit. Credit is more important than anything else. So I could buy on credit. I could sell the merchandise and pay the bills. It's not that I had a big capital background behind me. It's just that I was able to turn over the inventory.
And with two locations, it was easy to turn over.
Right in between that. No, not that so much, because this was a venture with women's wear and things of that nature. And then about a year or two after that, we got that off the ground. A gentleman approached me and asked me to go into a shopping center on the highway, which was more exposure, and be some stores, bigger stores. And I negotiated that. And at some point I took space there, and we did exceptionally well for 5 or 10 years. And that's it. And,
Okay.
and then we expanded a little more.
Question.
In my mid-30s and even into my mid-40s, I had quite a few opportunities to expand into other things besides retail. These would require investments. These would require personal sacrifice, hard work, and I kept discussing that with my wife. And my wife decided, she says, David, let's make enough money to be happy. And past that, let's not put ourselves in a position where we have to keep our nose to the grindstone for another 10 or 15 years before we come out and become wealthy people. I would rather live today.
I felt that way before.
So I felt ambivalent about it, because I would have liked to have made a lot more money than I probably ended up making, but at the same time, my wife had a very good point. You have to live for today. So we did. And we lived to the fullest, I would say. up until now, and we're still here. Right.
Well, one of my problems, why I felt that way, is because I lost my parents at a very young age. My mother was 52, my father was 56 or 57, depends on who you speak to. And I didn't know, usually you are what your parents are. And by the time I was 48, I remember I was like panicking. I might die, and I had my young kids. And there was so much I wanted to live and do. And I could make a lot of money. Yes, true. But I may not live to see the end of that road. So I wanted to enjoy life at the moment. What they say, you live life for the moment. And that's how we came to that conclusion. But here I am. In a couple of days, I'll be 84. And I beat the odds, and I beat the gods. So
you traveled a lot.
We traveled a lot. We did
We
everything.
do what we want to
We
do.
lived like millionaires on a good budget.
Yes,
On a good budget. So what I recommend fully is live for the moment and enjoy every single day.
Now, what comes first, of course, is health. But then happiness comes before wealth.
Yeah, but let me tell you, if you're
It's
happy,
nice to have both, don't get me wrong.
if you're happy and you do not have stress, and stress is caused a lot by trying to make a lot of money or losing money, because losing money will give you stress also. And I just felt that just enjoy the day. And you can enjoy small things. You could take a ride in the country and enjoy that. Go see a good movie, you can enjoy that. And most of all, enjoy your family, and be friends with them and be there for them. And don't tell them what to do.
That's good. You
You
guys
like that?
getting there. Oh,
No,
yes.
that was our philosophy.
That's good.
Anyhow, I personally, I can't speak for Nina, but I personally never planned any children. They just happened. And Nina, it's on you now. But I did have fun making children.
I always wanted, when I was very young, I always wanted 4 kids. I love kids, I always loved kids, even when I was younger. Kids always came to me, around me, and I enjoyed children, but I ended up with 3, boy, girl, and then I hesitated for a while, because then our parents, his father died, my mother died, and I wanted to name, if I had a third, after my mother, and he wanted it after his father, so we just held off for a while, and then I got to a point, I was 34 years old, it was that year or never, and so we decided that if it's a boy, the child will be named after his father, if it's a girl, it will be named after my mother, and reversed. So the first name would be, after each parent. And then, thank God, she was a girl, my Stacy, and first name is Stacy, and the middle name is Reese. One named after the mother, and the second named after the father. And we're very happy. We're very happy to have, my family is super, super special. I have a wonderful, wonderful son and 2 beautiful daughters, and it's just a happy family, and I'm thrilled with their spouses. They all have wonderful spouses and wonderful families.
And they all know how to get along with each other.
Yes.
Which is not the truth at all families.
There's no jealousies at all, and everybody's happy for each other. And how can you ask for anything more than that?
How was for you to leave the kids at home and go to work?
At the beginning, we had day people would come in, babysitters.
Right.
And then, I don't know, maybe because my sister first got somebody to sleep in. And I said, that's a good idea. And we did, we got somebody.
Yeah. Through those transitional years, we always
Yeah.
had sleeping.
We had Vicky,
A,
who
and
was
B,
fabulous.
B, Nina was, Nina didn't have to punch her time clock, so she always came home and gave the kids milk and cookies. She was always there when they came out of school, most of the time, anyhow. So our kids really didn't want from working parents that are never home.
And
We did not have that situation.
And I was always there to do the carpooling, and whatever I had to do. So I just was able to carry a couple hats.
I think, in today's world, you see a lot of people holding off having children until the risks of having children are less. And how did that enter your decisions for myself? And
Mike, could I speak for a minute?
Yeah.
My philosophy is have your children young, because you're growing up with the kids. That's number one. And number two, it's healthier. They say having children should be in the 20s, and I agree with that. And holding off so you have a couple dollars more, so your lifestyle will be better. No, I say struggle a little bit and have your children young. It pays off in the long run, because you're growing up with the children. You're still young enough to be with your grandchildren. In my time, I didn't have grandparents. That was terrible. And my children I had one grandfather, and Michael and Stacy and Roberta grew up with one grandmother. And it's not good. Grandparents are very important in the children growing up.
And that you talked about finances, but even outside of finances, people feel like they want to be active in the 20s also. There's...
That's selfish.
Why is it selfish?
It's selfish because you're thinking of yourself.
You can still be active. You're active.
You're active with your children.
Maybe the world's a little different today. Maybe it's more corporate, and people have positions, and they have to dedicate themselves to these positions, and maybe the structure is such that they have to do it this way, or it's easier for them to do it this way. And also medicine has changed, everything has changed. Maybe you can have children a little later. Maybe longevity has changed, you'll live a little longer. So really, it may be a trade-off.
It isn't. The woman's clock, the biological clock, is the exact same as it was forever.
You think even with Planned Parenthood?
Even with Planned Parenthood. No. Now they're pushing it to 40, but 35 was the cutoff.
It's an optimum situation.
But
it's
when you're
wrong.
You can't get pregnant so fast.
When you're 20 years old or so, you still discover who you are as a person. So if you have a little one next to you, do you think it was sort of challenging because you were like discovering yourself?
She was 23 already. She wasn't 20.
Yeah, 20 years.
I don't know, my children did give me a challenge, if you wanted to know. Michael had his little problems growing up as a baby. Stacy had, Roberta had, and it's, you have to face it. You can't just throw it away or put it into a drawer and say, I'll go to it when I'm ready. You have to face these problems. And you find yourself much stronger than you think you are. Because these little babies are depending on you. So,
and you love them. That's very important. That's a lot of life.
right.
There's love, affection. It's really very important.
And the most important thing is the sense of responsibility. They're your responsibility. And God gave them to you, and you have to take care of them. And love, true, you do love them, but it's mainly your responsibility.
So this is about parent, it goes beyond baby. So, maybe talk a little bit, or what's your thoughts about the discipline and the molding of a person?
I don't know, we had the same background, basically. His culturally and financially were a little different than mine, but we were both brought up the exact same way, really. And respect, and being able to go out in the world with these morals. And I had a very strong disciplinarian as my father. And my mother a little bit too, but my father. And he demanded a certain rigid way of how to carry yourself. And to me, I appreciate it, even though sometimes I said, "Why is he so angry at me?" But when I got to be an adult, I realized that this man gave me more tools than any college could give me to conduct myself as an adult. And I basically brought my children up the same way. I didn't tolerate anything. I don't believe that you should be your child's friend because they have to show respect to you and you have to give respect to them. And I find my children, who have the children, bring up their kids the same way. So they must have, I know Roberta and Stacy both appreciate the way they were brought up.
As an example, one day Michael came home, I think it was around 5ish, and he complained that somebody hit him. And he came home crying, and he thought he would get empathy from his parents. And Nina was home on me, and she kicked him right out of the house. She says, "Go back and defend yourself." And then Michael came back a little bit later, beat me. I hit him. I really got him.
And I read.
And that's how we raised our kids.
But
that's very simple, but that's it.
I read that Hillary Clinton went through the exact same thing.
Really?
She came home complaining that the children were, hitting her and not treating her properly. And her mother was at the door and told her, "Go out and defend yourself." Yeah. So she went through the same thing. I laughed. I said, I did the right thing. So.
Okay, let's go. This one's about falling in love. So, talk about...
What is that? What is falling in love?
Falling in love with love itself. Da, 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 da. So how did we meet is what you want to know.
No, I didn't know it was love.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can go to the story.
It doesn't mean that it has to be each other. Maybe you fall in love with somebody else before. I don't know.
I never had fallen in love with anybody before.
Well, I thought that it was love with somebody.
Yeah, you go through infatuation.
Infatuation. I realized later it was infatuation, wasn't love. When I met him, I knew what love was. Yeah. We looked at each other and it was like, bzzz.
Well, speak for yourself.
And that was it.
So I was still keeping the door open a little bit. And she was a pretty nice looking girl and everything, so that was happiness. But then when I wanted to do something different, I always gave her some money to buy tickets to a theater because she worked in New York and she could get tickets easy. So we skipped a week here and there, stuff like that.
He had to save up his money again.
I wasn't saving any money at $1 an hour.
What were you doing at the time?
I was up in off of Route 46. They had opened a building where various merchants took spaces, and we had our space, and it was a good concept at the moment, and the business was pretty good there. Yeah, for that, and that's what I did.
And tell them how you got my number.
And then we had a little problem in the building. We were doing so well that somebody wanted to take us over, the people who owned the place actually. And we decided to go to court, have a little court case. And my future brother-in-law was an attorney named Irvin Schechter, and he came by with his girlfriend, fiance at that time, maybe, I'm not sure. And he said, "Gee, why don't you go out with her sister, good girl?" I said, "Well, Jean's too tall." I said, "If she's like Jean, I don't want to start up." He said, "I didn't know she's just too tall, He said, "No, she's the short one." So that's how that happened. And as I told you, with the theater tickets and this, that, and the other thing. And little by little, we get closer and closer.
So you had to make the call.
Well, here's what it was. It was January where we met, and it was June. when I was having a nice time, and I really could have just coasted maybe for another year or two or three or five. Who knows? That's what guys do. And she sat me down and she said, David, I am 22 years of age. She said, I have a mission. I want to get married. And I'm looking at her, she be crazy. Hey, I ain't got no money. What do you want to get married? So she says, think it over. So I'm driving home and I'm saying, who is she to talk to me that way? That I have to, or get off the pot. I said, no, I'll fix it. I'll marry her. So that was that. And then July 4th weekend, we were invited to her aunt's home in Martha's Vineyard. And the lady looked at us and she looked at me. She said, oh, you look very nice. Would you like a double or a single? Which was cute. So I slept with Erwin Schechter, my future brother-in-law. And he says that I put my arms around him and said, I love you, Nita. So that's all I remember. And that was it.
But you had to make as you were doing this drive, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the decision point,
Right.
there had to be more to. Was it just not thinking, or was it thinking? Like what goes through?
I don't think it was thinking. I think it just pops out. I didn't think about it. It just happened. That was my thought process. I didn't rationalize the whole thing truly, because if I did, I'd never get married.
Well,
I didn't have any savings. I didn't have any funds. I didn't have anything, you know. I lived with my parents, you know, and that's it. I had to make my future. It wasn't there yet, you see. It was at the beginning, but it wasn't there yet. And what was I? I was 24, I guess, 45, yeah, 26 maybe.
25.
25, right.
No, 26. I was
Because I had been in the service.
You're 4 years older than I am. I did have, you know, I had a high school boyfriend that I thought I loved, but then when I met Daddy, I realized that ours was true love, you know. And what is true love? I think true love is whatever you want it to be, you know. And I know when I first met Daddy, and I saw him at the door, we always laughed. We said, where did you ever come from? I said, well, I found you on my doorstep. And I saw him, and he had a twinkle in his eye. He says, wow, he says, you're prettier than I even expected you to be. I mean, that's a great line. But I don't think it was a line from him. I think,
No, I don't have a line.
He doesn't have a line. He just says what he's thinking, and it was, you know, he felt it was the truth.
Well, you saw the wedding pictures.
And I knew what I wanted in true love and the man I wanted to marry. And the most important thing was honesty. He has to be honest. And Daddy is everything that honesty is. And he had to be good looking. He was cute. You know, I wanted a tall fellow. Well, you can't have everything, you know. And I just didn't even notice that he wasn't tall at that point, because he had everything else. He had a twinkle in his eye. And he wanted out of life what I wanted out of life. And that is to have fun and laugh every single day. You know, I always enjoyed laughing, enjoyed having a good time. And when things are bad, that you can still laugh. You know, and that's the most important thing. And we feel the same way about each other, I think, that we did when we first met, if not more. Yeah, every year would be more love, more love. And we shared it with our children and our grandchildren. So that's how I feel. I think anything more. That's how I speak from my heart.
You know, we talked about, you know, falling in love. There's also things that happen in life is losing people, you know, losing people you love. So can you talk a little bit about, like maybe your parents or other people, or what happens?
Could I say
Deal with
something?
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever said this to Daddy. Daddy lost his best friend and his brother and his best friend when he was 14 and his brother just turned 20.
That's right.
And Seymour was the closest to his age, and he was like a little puppy dog.
Yeah, he would crawl in the bed and sleep with me and this and that. And I remember the last time I ever saw him, he had a girlfriend in town. It was probably the prettiest girl, Jewish girl in town anyhow. And he was very charismatic, and everybody in town, it was like a Pied Piper in that area. He really was. And he went to go to the railroad station in Somerville to take the train to New York or Newark, where I guess Newark probably where he was, in the service already, and he was on vacation, and or wherever he had to go, I don't remember. So anyhow, he said, "You come with me," and her name was Rona, I think, and her father had a candy store with ice cream and everything with it. It was a very nice little store. And we met there, and we walked down Main Street to the railroad station. And he wanted me for two reasons. First of all, he loved me, but really, it was so nice. He wanted someone to bring Rona back to the store, So then I brought her back to the store. That was the last time we ever saw her. And yes, I think at that age, he certainly was my best friend.
So I think that when he met me,
Wonderful boy.
I think when he met me, I was the closest thing to Seymour. Is that true?
That's true. You were easy. We could just sit down and joke and laugh and that kind of stuff, right? But you didn't have to walk your boyfriend around.
No. And then it was hard when we both lost our parents too, at the
We were
same
pretty
time.
early, I was 32 and Nina was
29.
I lost my dad.
Yeah, I was 29.
You were 29 and I was 33, I guess, 32, 33, something.
That was very difficult.
So that's pretty young to lose
Losing
your
both.
parents. You had the experience, which is not happiness. She had it. And then she lost her mother 3 months after my father. And my mother and Sonia, her mother, had made arrangements for Sonia to move into my mother's house.
So the Mukatona would be living with each other.
So they'd live with each other. They did enjoy each other. And then all of a sudden she died and on us. So, yes, very sad. And, it's bad enough when you lose people at older ages, but these are people in their 50s and 60s.
Well, this is what I say to my friends who are dealing with older parents now. Some in dementia, some of them very sick. I said, it was very, very difficult losing parents young. I don't have that problem now, of dealing with older parents. I said, but I think both of them are bad. Losing parents young and then taking care of your elderly parents.
Yeah, to be a caretaker, it's got to be a rough
It's very
job.
difficult.
Yeah.
So I just feel both sides are hard. So enjoy your parents while you got them and they're healthy.
I hear how he would act.
Exactly.
Oh, that's different. Yeah.
And my mother too, and my father. Especially now, all of a sudden my father is coming into my thoughts, which it never did before. I find my father,
How old were you when?
Same age.
17.
I was
Same as
16,
her, she was
yeah.
16.
And maybe because I'm much older now and I could relate to my father, how he would think. But when I was younger, 16 years old, you're carefree and fancy free, you're out, you don't want anybody putting limitations on you. But now, at my age, I do think quite a bit about what my father would think. And especially, I used to go into David Binder's office, and my father was a dentist, he was a dentist, and my father would be ecstatic to have an office on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. And I almost feel that I sit in that chair, my father is standing there watching, you know, that his granddaughter married a dentist also, but having an office on Fifth Avenue, New York. So yeah, I think of him, and especially now, I think of him that his great granddaughter, is graduating dental school and following his footsteps. So yeah.
Does it come into play as life goes on, where you think about what your mother or father would say?
Oh,
Yes.
you always have it in the back of your mind.
Yes,
I mean, we do. I don't know others.
I think of my
don't.
mother all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and what do I think about my mother all the time? Is this. It's a shame, Mom, that you didn't live to see your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. I said, you would have been very proud of them. And that's basically what I think of, you know.
Well, it's also the respect you have of their teachings.
Right.
You know, even though they may not have actually taught, it's how they lived their life and tried to get you to live your life. And this is a way that you want to get your kids to live their lives, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And especially if your life is happy. And, you know, someday I'll kick off, and I don't want people to say, oh, he passed. I just want to say, oh, what a nice life he had. I mean, we all pass, but it's so much nicer when you have a life you can really revel it, and we do.
Do you believe that when you pass, that's the end, or it's just the beginning of a new journey?
That's religion, and I don't want to get into religion unless you
What
want
do
to
you
know
believe?
whether I'm an agnostic.
Yeah, what do you believe?
I believe when you die, you die.
I think I remember.
If there's something there after that, we'll find out. But as far as I can see, as far as I can touch, as far as I can feel, when you die, you die. If there's a heaven, well, we know there's a cloud now because everybody's got one, but if there's a heaven, there'll be a heaven, yeah, but my feeling is it's got to be pretty crowded. How much can it handle, you know?
I don't know, my philosophy again is live life to the fullest here.
Yeah.
Who knows?
You don't know what's going on.
I don't know, I don't want to take a chance.
Yeah.
You know, why? I'm not a gambler.
And religion, in my opinion, has basically been formed to help people get through life, which is very important. You have to have a crutch sometimes.
This actually leads to what would have been the next question, so it's kind of interesting. And so, when you are young, you're kind of told in religious about, like, there's a God and there's this, but you're going to temple or you're doing whatever you're doing, but you're not really thinking about it too much. You're just being told this is that. And then there's some time in life where most people have faith in something. And so it's like a God to faith, or maybe God has nothing to do with having faith in something, you know, but that's really a lot of what religion is having faith. And so maybe there's some point in life where faith really took over, and it's, you know, it could be in things that are events and things.
Well, I want to say something, because I read for many years, that as you get older and you're my age and you are at the threshold of the ever after, that you do have more faith in God than you did when you were younger, because you're not facing that. Even, you know, you don't think about health. You think of, you know, of falling in love, getting married, your work, you know, climbing up the ladder, but you're not thinking of God or faith. But as you get older and you're reaching the ever after, you think more of faith, and you find, I don't know about church, but you find people going to synagogue more and becoming more religious. I don't feel that way. You know, I feel there's a God, and God is with me. If I'm talking to my mother, I'm also talking to God, you know, and I feel sometimes that I'm an angel. I'm God's angel. Talking about that, and I'm put here to do good. I don't know if that's crazy or not, but I even mentioned that to the rabbi once. I said, I just feel that I'm God's angel. And sometimes things happen that I could have died, and I didn't. I came through it, and I'm here for a purpose. But getting more religious, I'm not any more religious than I ever was, and I believe I'm a Jew, and I more into that, and as a Jewish person than I am to the Jewish God, if there's such a thing.
Me? Well, I gave my input really, but at the same time, I believe religion is important in the sense that you're following in the footsteps of your ancestors, and that's usually the way you continue your religion. And the basis of the religion I think that we have is that we have a single cell, which is called a family, and then our extended family, and then our community family. And the community family, I believe that was right to bring our children up and ourselves to maturity within that larger cell, which would be the Jewish community in our neighborhood. So that's why we became involved in the Jewish community. That's why we paid our dues and our kids went to school, and we did everything with that in mind. And we thought that would be a happier life for our kids too, and that they should follow in the footsteps if they could. That's how we felt about it, that's all. We're not religious per se. I don't know what we call secular that way.
Spiritual?
Huh?
The spiritual people?
Secular.
We're secular means you're not that spiritual, I think, But we believe in the concept of everything, that it's important to have a religion around you, and it's important to have some belief and to put everybody together in the same circumstances. So that's what
I think sometimes, there's religion, and then there's another thing of confidence of doing things. There's gambles in life. There's gambles every day we do something, and sometimes, you just have confidence in your decision, and that's the end of that. And sometimes it goes a little, or maybe this is a question. Does it go into faith? Does it go into, I just believe this is the way things are going to be, and whether that has anything to do with a God or religion, I'm not sure. But
well, there's such a thing as timing, which if you're in business or doing something, I think timing is very important. By timing it, you look at the whole world, you look at your country, you look at what's happening around you, and then you decide timing, if you can. I don't know if you can, really.
I don't know about it.
But I just think of religion as I said it before. I don't think it involves. I don't think I'm spiritual in making any big decisions of life. I think I do it because it makes sense to me.
And I think Daddy and I both feel the same way. We feel very comfortable in our skin. I have a lot of confidence in Daddy. I have a lot of confidence in myself. I didn't always. I think as you get older, you find that you make certain decisions in life, and it comes out the right way. You say, "Oh, I did that right," and you go on to.
And
You
life,
have more confidence in yourself.
life has some bumps in it, but I can tell you right now, I don't really think Trump will be here forever.
But that sentence might.
He's a bump.
So,
Trump bump.
yeah,
The Trump bump.
this kind of leads to another question too, so we'll just keep going. And that is, and you had mentioned it with the angel type
Right.
of thing, has there been an event where you've been able to make someone you know or someone you didn't know very well, just their life better somehow?
Every day I will tried to be good to people and to help them. I can't think of anything, for the split second, because I don't think about it. If I do that, I just pass it on and say, okay, that's good. But I do it all the time. I find children like our tenant, Danielle, has an autistic child. I would try to make her happy, a little girl, and be nice to her and talk to her, knowing that I'm not going to get a real answer back, but she understands what I'm saying to her, and I give her the attention. And I think it's important to help people and to have a feeling for them and let them know you have it. Even animals. I told you this vacation, I found out if you talk nice to cows or horses, that makes them feel good. Who ever thought of that before? But it's true. It's being good to people and thinking of them, not only of yourselves.
I thought you both, you probably, but you also had to, like, especially when Rowena was having all those problems,
Sure.
I thought you did a lot then.
If anything came to us, we didn't go look for things. We didn't volunteer for the hospital, and to do this and do that. But if any problem ever came to us, we would do the best we could to solve it. We're not going to find things, but if things came to us, we were there.
My cousin Nancy Borg, who so tragically had bipolar. She was bipolar since she was in her late 20s, early 30s, and suffered horribly. She has demons that follow her every day. And she would be going in and out of hospitals, institutions, and her husband has to deal with that, and her two daughters. And I remember going away to Saratoga with her a couple of years ago, and I could see that she was really trying to keeping up, and she couldn't. And I would sit back with her and I'd say, "Come on, Nancy, we can sit here. We can let them do what they want to do. We'll sit and talk." So I kept her, that way. And then she went through a bad dementia and the Lewy syndrome dementia, which I understand now she's feeling better. And a couple of weeks ago, I went to see her, and she has full-time help taking care of her. And she goes to like a daycare center, and she's really bad. And I came to see her, and she was sitting there with her head down, closing her eyes and mumbling. And Jerry says to her, "Nancy, Nina's here." And she looked up. She says, "Your cousin Nina." I said, "Nancy, I came to visit you." I said, "I wanted to see you." And she looked at me. She says, "Oh, my cousin Nina. Yes, she is always so sunny and such a nice person." And I want to cry, because here she is with all the demons and the dementia, and she knew who I was. And, you're talking about that, and that happened, and it did make me feel good, because, here, I feel bad for her, and I try to help her, and, give her attention and love, because I think with all the money that little girl had, I don't think she ever really had that much love, other than Jerry, who really took care of her and still taking care of her. So
I'm asking a spontaneous question about a spontaneous event. So the idea of being spontaneous, and the idea
whatever's in your mind.
Yeah, and has there been something you've done, just boom, just did it, Spontaneous question about spontaneous event.
When it's spontaneous, who remembers?
I'm planning my next trip.
That's true. That takes guts. When you're 88 years old and you're planning a next trip to Europe.
We'll pick the car up in Nice. We're going to go to Piemonte. Then we're going to go down the coast of Italy, past Rome, into Sorrento, down into Sicily. Then I'm going to take the ferry from Sicily back to Genoa, because you can't get to Nice, and bring the car back to Nice, and then fly home. here because I'm cheap. Because $600 to pick the car up in Italy. That's spontaneity, right?
It's a terrible airport, that Nice airport. I don't have happy memories there.
Nice?
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I want to go, he wants to go right, I want to go left. I want to go west, he wants to go east. So I want to go west and head towards, back in France again and go to Bordeaux. You were in Bordeaux. So I want to go to Bordeaux.
When
around that area.
when you're on this last trip, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, especially on a trip, you end up being more spontaneous than, when you're here, because here you kind of plan a day, So, was there an event on this last trip to France where you just said, today we're going to do this?
We decided to go to this, we wanted to go to this restaurant that we had been to a few years ago.
Funny.
And we ended up going to that restaurant. The restaurant had an outside and an inside, but the weather was bad, so they did inside. Inside wasn't that large, maybe 10, 12, 15 tables. And we sat down.
We had a reservation.
We had a reservation. The lady gave us to a seat that Nina would have objected to, so we ended up getting other seats. And then alongside of us was a Belgique couple, and we started talking. And he started hitting on Nina. And he said, "Oh, you're beautiful, I want you." And his wife and I are sort of laughing, And finally, you want to know what spontaneity is? I told him, "You can have her. Just pay the bill." And he backed right off.
But the funny thing is that we thought that the other, they're French, a little more proper, and we were annoying them. So, they came for this expensive dinner.
Yeah, the other people that were dining there.
Well,
yes.
afterwards, they said to us, "We loved it.
We're the poor.
We had such a good
listening
time."
to this conversation,
There was about 3 tables, and that was fun.
2 old couples banging it back and forth.
So, and then the owner of this restaurant, when we came in, she couldn't speak English. And when the French can't speak English, that's when they get rude, and she threw the menu at the table that she wanted me to sit in. And I looked at the table with a pole there. I said, "I'm not sitting here." I said, "I want to sit over there." And she looked at me. I said, "There." So she took the menu and threw it on that table. We sat down there. And at the end, I said, "I'm mad at her." I said, "We waited 14 years to come back to your restaurant, and it says, and you treat me like this?" I said, "I came out of my way to come to this town to eat in your restaurant." So I said, "I want to sit there," and then afterwards, when we left, we hugged and kissed each other. Because that's me.
And then I kissed her on both. She kissed me on both cheeks,
Yeah, she liked it. So I said, that's the way.
What brought you back?
The ambience, the food, and very interestingly, the last time we were there, we met another couple who had driven down from Paris to spend the weekend there to eat at that restaurant. So evidently the restaurant has a mystique. And we talked and we laughed and we had a lot of fun. And then the gentleman told me that he's a man in his 50s, I would say. And he said he's going to be in Florida next week. I think he said Miami.
No, he didn't say Miami, he said Florida.
He said Florida next week. And I said, "Oh, that's nice." He said, "Yeah." He says, "We have a meeting." He says, Disneyland.
He did not mention Disneyland.
He did. What did he say?
No, he said, "I have a meeting with the board."
Yes, with the board. He's on the board. He has a board of directors meeting. He's on the board, right? And then he told me he's Disney from Disneyland in Paris.
No.
So
this is the subject of going from young to older, and lessons learned, and some of the
Philosophy.
things. Philosophy. There you go. That's probably what I'm trying to say.
What about it?
Talk about what you've learned and some of the things that you would suggest to people listening.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm 88, and I don't feel like an old man. I know I am because of my age and everything, but I just feel, I guess, I'm a little older than I used to be, and I don't think anything has changed for me. You guys are still my kids, and of course, I'm not taking care of you anymore, but I'm not asking you to take care of me either, which I think is pretty good. And just keep having fun. Don't worry about getting older. I don't have a philosophy that way.
Well, I feel young,
That's good.
I don't suffer from anything.
Yeah, we're
And
lucky.
if I do, like I get a backache or a shoulder ache, I'll swim to get rid of it, and I'm active. As I said, I'm playing tennis Monday morning, 8:30, and I don't know, it's a lot of times I think I'm much younger than my age. I say, gee, I feel much younger. Maybe I feel like 65. I said, no, I can't be 65. My son is almost that. How could I have had Michael at 5 years old? No, I can't feel that. And all of a sudden I start feeling older again. I don't make me 70. I feel 70.
Well, I'll tell you, I do have a little bit of a philosophy, which I probably didn't have when I was younger. When you're dealing with people at almost any level, and you're not happy with what they're doing, or you think they're bad, or this or that, just turn around and do the other cheek a little bit and figure out, why are these people like this? Well, what is going on? Maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe they have a problem in life that, they're taking it out on you or something like that. See if it's real badness to you, or if it's just something that you can compensate and still enjoy them and just move on that way.
I always felt that
You
way.
understand what I'm
He learned from
yeah.
me.
Yeah. Because there's always something behind there,
I always thought that Minnie stopping driving was one of the funniest stories, where she, maybe you could tell that, but the real concept is there's some things, even all through life.
She was in denial of aging, and she was 89 or 90, 89, and she still lived in her house in Somerville, and the car was in the garage, and I said, Mom, how come you're not driving anymore? She says, I'm driving. And then I asked her again, and she finally told me, she says, they won't give me insurance. So I said, well, I guess maybe that's it, Mom. Maybe it's time to sell the car. And we sold the car. We sold it to Don, gave it to Don on the corner. And he always sold cars with him. I sold I bought my Kaiser for $30 from him. Not from him, no, but then I gave it to him to sell, and he got me $65 back.
Remember we used to call it the Trotsky?
A year later, it was a tank.
It looked like a Russian car.
And Nina used to get out, open the hood, because it had a little click like that where there was a shift. So where the shift stuck, sometimes it slipped. So Nina would take it, she put it back.
I used to wear my fur coat. There's times that I had my Persian lamb coat on. I had a Persian lamb coat, and all of a sudden, it had its problem. I pull up the hood, and men would come over and they say, "Could I help you, lady?" I said, "No, no problem."
And I got stopped once on 22 by the state police. They pulled over, the thing was, and they pulled me over, and he said, "You were speeding." And I said, "This car can't go that fast." And then I looked at it, it was a customer of mine, and he was a gag. He knew who I was.
But one time I was years and years and years later, I was going up Bustle Avenue, crossing and waiting at 22 to the light change, and all of a sudden somebody in front of me stalled. So I walked out and I said, "What's your problem?" She says, "Oh, I can't get it out of gear." So I says, "Oh, no problem, open up your hood." Another man came by, he says, "Could I help?" I said, "No, I got it under control." Flipped it up. I do that's the only thing I know about being a geared car is just flip it up. And she was on her way.
We had shipped cars for years. I wouldn't buy a automatic.
I hated shipped cars.
I still love a shipped car.
Okay, we go to Europe, France or Italy, and we do not speak the language, but I manage. This is one way I manage. I was in the supermarket, and I knew from the first time, they don't keep the eggs in the refrigerator. It's on the shelf. So now I knew it was on the shelf. Now go find eggs. What department is it that the eggs are sitting on the shelf? So this was the first time, and it was in France, and I had to find the eggs. So I saw two women about my age. So I asked them in English, "Do you know where the eggs are?" And they didn't know what I was talking about. And then I says, "Well, I knew that in tennis, love means egg." So I go, "Les ou?" They looked at me. No, I probably said it wrong. The right word. Yeah, I said it wrong. So I said, "Oh, that's not going to work." So I says, "Okay." I says, "Cock-a-doodle-doo." I go, well, the ladies were hysterical, but they knew exactly what I said, and they said, "Oh, French, come with me, it's over here." And that's basically how I communicate in French and in Italian.
Oh, that's another question. All right, another question. So, you come across people all the time in life, and how do you handle, the what people think of you, type of, experience,
We don't care.
We don't care.
We don't care.
Yeah, I mean, we know who we are, so why would I worry about what they? I'm not there to try and. Well, once in a while you have to do. I'm not there to impress people, but sometimes you hit situations and we look at each other, and we both say the same thing: "Showtime," and then we put on our other face. And we do what's necessary to look good for showtime.
And talk about showtime. Like,
well, we could be in a crowd of people, and you want people to like you. You don't know anybody, or you know very few people, or you don't know people well, or whatever. So you're not quite in your comfort zone. So you go into showtime mode, and you talk to people, introduce yourself, and make them.
What is showtime?
Like
Literally, I came across showtime is when I went to England by myself for the first time. I was probably in my 40s, and I didn't think anything else. It sounded like fun. I'm going to the spa, and so I said, but once I was on the plane, I said, "My God, where am I going?" I said, "Where am I going?" I said, "I never went by myself. It's another country, other people." I said, "So, Nina, you'll manage." So it was on a Sunday, and everybody was sitting at the pool. I said, "I can't stay in my room. I have to go out. I have to go to the pool." I says, "How am I going to handle it?" I said, "Okay, I'm going to say showtime, and I'm going to be another character, just like on the stage. So I'm going to be Nina, the other Nina, who is very friendly and outgoing." So I came down to the pool, and I smiled at everybody, and I waited for somebody to smile back at me, and somebody did smile back at me, a woman with her daughter. And
She had gas.
no, she had gas. And I sat down, I introduced myself, and I started talking, and I found out that is how you handle yourself. You know, you make believe you're on the stage, and you smile, and the first thing you do is introduce yourself. I'm Nina Orshan, what is your name? And people are so thrilled to talk to you. You know, you broke the ice, and that's how I handle people.
Most people have an inner shyness inside of them, believe it or not.
They do.
No, that's it. They have that inner shyness. And if you're brave enough to bring it out, then you're both going to benefit from it.
And they're happy.
That's really what
They're
it's
thrilled.
about.
They're thrilled.
Yeah. Well, so
Go back.
I can ask another question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So life has all these different chapters, but usually what's definitely a chapter is when you move from one place to another. You know, I mean, you've moved a lot of places when you were young.
When I was young,
And
but
then-
I
It's
didn't
in the
know the
same
difference,
town.
really.
It
But
was
still,
in
you
the
had to
same
do it.
town.
Yeah.
But here, we in our adult life, we haven't really moved that many times.
No.
The first place we took was in Clifton, New Jersey.
That was home
That's where he was
for
born,
me.
right?
Yeah, but that was home for me.
And that's where she lived, and then
My
I
area.
traveled down to the shore to work, and that's where you were born, and we stayed there
No,
until
he was a little baby then.
at Clifton.
Oh, Clifton, yes, but
He was
in
born in
Long
Clifton.
Range.
Yeah, no, we're in Clifton, and we stayed there for a while, and then we moved down to the shore, and we stayed there for a couple of years, and we had a lovely time, except the neighbors complained about you a little bit, because
Used to ride the
we were upstairs, you were downstairs, and you were riding something that made noise.
crib.
Yeah,
Used to
yeah.
ride the crib,
but the,
push it, and it used to roll back and forth.
yeah, and that's where I remember that we had lobster for the first time, and we put them in a pot or something.
No,
like
no,
that,
into the roaster.
into the roaster, and they made a hell of a noise or something.
I grabbed him by the hand.
And she and Michael were home,
And
and
we
they
ran-
ran loudly with the lobsters in
It
that.
was
They didn't know what was
banging
happening.
on the door of the roaster. So I grabbed him and said, "Let's get out of here!"
That was so funny. And then we moved to Somerville, and then we bought our first house in Somerville. And we stayed there for 8 years, and then
So-
we stayed in our second house for 25 years, and we've been here for 25 years.
So you were in like Brookside, right? In
For maybe 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah,
and then you had to decide how to move. Like that was a process
Then
of
we
some
went to
type.
Imperial Drive.
I had Roberta already, and was a little too crowded.
Yeah, it was getting a little crowded, so we moved to.
And then
And
you bought there, right?
Yes.
We bought.
So that had to be, something new.
Well, I didn't have the money to buy a house. That's interesting too. And the whole house was 17,000. And my father went to my brother Joe. He said, "Why don't you loan him $1,500? He can buy the house." And Joe said, "Fine." He had $1,500. He gave me the cash, and I bought the house. And then Joe assumed that I'm never going to pay him back. And I told Nina, I said, "You know something?" I said, "You may not eat, but this man's getting his money back plus 6% interest within the year." And he got it back.
Ate a lot of
He was
macaroni
very
and cheese.
surprised, and we did our thing. That's all.
Well, that was good.
Yeah.
And then,
And then we moved with everybody else up the hill.
Oh, that was another thing, is that David had a certain amount of money, a budget of what kind of house, what price house.
Me.
And we had a male real estate agent, male. And he I knew exactly, like I always know exactly who I wanted to marry, what he had to be. I knew the house I wanted. And this man said, "You can't buy there, you can't afford it." I said, "Don't tell me I can't afford it." I said, and he started showing me other areas. I said, "No." I said, "I don't want that."
Wasn't that Ronald Brand?
No, it wasn't Ronald Brown. I don't know. was somebody from Boundbrook.
Oh,
So
I don't know.
eventually, I went myself, and they were building those new homes, and that's when Ronald Brown came in.
Oh, right.
And I said, this is where I want to live. It was a brand new development, and I brought Daddy up there, and he liked it too. And we bought there, and I had to tell the gentleman, sorry, but we found our own place.
Well, he was a bad real estate agent. He could have gotten.
He was a male. It was a male way of thinking that our husband is going to only pay that. I'm not going to show her anything, other than what he wants.
No.
What
You
was
gotta always listen to the woman.
And I worked hard, and we paid the house off in 15 years instead of 30.
Wow. But Martinsville was
In
over
Martinsville.
budget? Is that what you...
What?
It was over budget, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Alright.
it was
Not much
Not
over.
much over.
Not much
budget.
over.
I actually wanted to buy off of Foothill Road.
It was remember I
There's a
showed
steel
you?
gap, the block
Remember I
in front
showed
of
you
Steel
that house? I
Gap.
said we almost bought
They're
that
the
house.
same houses.
But I didn't want to be on Foothill.
She didn't want location, so then we got a nice location.
Next.
Yeah.
We'll go back.
Yeah, but I'm not...
Okay.
I mean, then you had to do this move.
Yeah, then you guys all left, and we didn't need a big house.
Well, actually, Roberta was buying her house, from New York, her apartment, and she bought in Scarsdale.
She bought first?
Yes,
before we
and
moved?
at the same time, Stacy got engaged. So those two events happened, and I said, I don't need this big house anymore. And I was in real estate, and I was showing around, customers. And this one particular customer, I showed them my house. He says, I love it, I want to buy it. So we gave him a price, and we said, we're not going to go under it, and this is what you have to pay us. So it's as is, and we gave him a good price. And of course, they started bargaining after.
Oh, yeah, we should have. So.
And but that's how we sold it. Sold it to a customer, and I knew about this development. The others weren't really built yet, and I thought the rooms were big
Oh,
here.
no. We had, by being in real estate, we looked at, we had someone who wanted to buy another unit in this complex.
Yeah, that's true.
And they couldn't buy the unit.
Oh,
Because they, I don't know, for whatever reason.
credit. I think
Credit was bad. They had the money, but the credit was bad. So I told him, I said, tell you what, if I could buy it at the right price, I'll buy it. You can rent it from me. And the price was good because it was with a real estate company. In other words, you buy out. The guy moved. The guy was with a company, big company, and he moved, so the company takes over the house.
They just wanted to turn it.
That kind of stuff. So I got a good deal on the house, bought it, rented. I still own this 25 years later.
Yeah.
They stayed for 16 years.
That's amazing.
And then we bought this a couple years later. Crazy lady owned it,
Yeah.
and
There was a fire.
she caused a fire,
Yeah.
and then she died here. So this, and everybody knew that she died here. It didn't bother me.
So we got a good deal, and I ripped the whole house.
Except she did visit me. If you don't believe in ghosts, she visited us.
Her name is Marilyn.
Marilyn. And one
She
night
used
I
to
woke
come.
up
She would come.
around 4 o'clock in the morning, and I saw a shadow, just a shadow, by the window. I said, I wonder what David is doing looking at the window. And then I saw him in bed with me. I said, oh my God. I said, I can't handle this. And I went under the covers, and I heard a crackling, like fire. And she caused the fire there. And never saw her again, but certain things happened. Like the TV would go off in the kitchen. So I would say,
Oh, she was
Marilyn, stop fooling around with the TV, And I would say those things. And eventually, after 3 months, she was gone. There was no more spirits here.
Well, we've gone through a kind of this subject a couple times, but it's good to hear your experience on it. And that's kind of going ahead and doing or accomplish something that maybe you had some doubts on before going along some road that you've decided on. So
You're talking about life's road.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, life's road. It could be, you know, as personal. It could be business. It could be a trip. It could be a relationship, you know, with somebody out there. Just where you had some doubts first, and then you were able to accomplish something.
Well, I guess at the beginning I thought it would have been, in hindsight, that I hadn't taken advantage of the GI Bill and gone back to school and perhaps got masters or, you know, better degrees and did something in my life that way. Because that part of life offered more security. And the path that we were on had no security. We were just had to do what we had to do. And if you go to school and you get a good job and you know you move up the ladder that way, and then you open your own business or whatever it is. So that's another path, but that's not the path we chose. In the long run, I'm happy we did. In the short run, I had little twinges of doubt, and that's the doubt sometimes you get when you're in business for yourself, and you know it's one step backwards, two steps forward. So nothing is easy. And, you know, even when you fix up a business or we had retail stores, you're there for 10 years, the store's obsolete. You have to put new fixtures in, new looks. You have to recreate because markets change. People change. So you think you made a lot of money, and all of a sudden you got to put it back in the walls or back in here. So that's a problem, you know, that we live through.
Well, when Daddy said that I'd come into business with him, so I said, well, I'm not going in with just men's clothing. I said, it has to be women's clothing.
Well, I had no intention of doing that. I'd be with us.
So I started buying in New York, and that was one experience I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed. That was my forte. I loved it. You know, going in.
Your mother was like a general. She walked right through all these vendors and kept saying, "Charge!"
If I had to think about what money I was spending, I would freak out.
Yeah.
You know,
She would take one vendor and spend $200,000-$300,000 on.
Well, that was Liz Clegg.
That's big money already.
That
in
was,
those days,
and then you had to buy it 6 times,
Mm.
6 times a year.
Wow.
That is, and you had to spend the minimum, and that was big money. But that was the vendor of those times, and we discounted it, and I did well with her, you know. And but the other vendors too, and the creating the store, how it was going to look, and it was, you know, it's part of being artist, you know, being an artist.
You have to be creative.
But I loved working there. You know, the first time I remember going, first couple times you don't know what you're doing, and we had buying offices too. You know, I would go with a buyer, and she would be giving me recommendations, you know, showing me where to go. So that helped quite a bit. But other times when I used to go by myself, I would watch the big buyers and act like they did. So I noticed right away, you come in, you have the paper there, your order paper, and a pen, and you're ready to do business. And that's how, you know, I would, showtime. Here's again, showtime. I would sit down, have the pen, and they have respect for you that way. So you always have to have respect. Give respect and have respect. So I loved it. I just loved it. I used to take Stacy with me. And Stacy had such a good eye that they used to watch what she was. I said, pick it out. You pick it out. And she used to have a ball. And they used to watch her. And
Yeah,
she did
because that's instinct. And they want to know what a kid wants, what a person wants for instinct.
She had good taste. So, but I enjoyed it. And today, the business is nothing like I was there.
You know, it's because of technology, like everything else.
Wait, don't turn it off a
Yeah.
minute.
What?
Madam X,
Mm.
she had her thing down,
Ah, okay.
the original painting
Ah.
down, and the people thought, from the
right.
galleries that it was very risque,
Very
Right.
and they wouldn't show it. So
Yeah,
he had it painted out and put the shoulder
The
strap
shoulder
on.
back.
If you look hard, you can see. You can see.
Later, but still, I'd like to know during each of your lifetimes today, and even, well, talk about an event in history where, we've gone through some events in history where it truly turned the page of history, and if I think of my life, might be a Man of the Moon or something like that.
Was it just
Yeah, or
the
9/11.
voice was
Maybe if you think about, what event, if it's one event in your lifetime, really turned the page of history, and describe what it was like living through that.
Well, I think one of the prime events that turned the pages of history was, two really. One, of course, was the World War II, and that was over. World War II turned the pages of history dramatically. I lost a brother there. My mother lost a family there, a sister and her whole family. So that was it's just an event of the world that hopefully will never happen again. The other event that really hit me hard was, and I couldn't even understand how it could possibly happen, and I still don't, was the assassination of Kennedy and his brother.
And
How
King.
could that all come about?
And King.
It's such a thing of history, and King, all in the same era. Who killed them? What happened? Is a total mystery of life. I just don't believe it's as simple as it looks.
When you're going through World War II, maybe go back and forth. Since that time, we had Vietnam, but it was nothing like that. What was it like to be there? And I don't even know what decisions had to be made on a daily basis because of it.
It was terrible. I was a young kid, and besides my brother Seymour missing in action in those days, my brother Marty was fighting with the 77th Division, and they were in the Philippines. They were in the Battle of Leyte. They were in Okinawa. They were in the Battle of Okinawa. My brother was just a few feet from this famous newspaper man,
Ernie Pyle.
correspondent called Ernie Pyle. In fact, he yelled at him to get down just as he was being shot. So, and then he spent time in Korea and time in Japan. So that was, and I was part of it from a distance. And then my brother Joe was flying a B-29. He was a flight engineer. And that wasn't the safest thing in the world, too. So, and I had my parents to deal with. I had to feel I was an older child, even though I was a little kid.
What were you
Because
doing?
I had to be
14.
supportive of them.
You were 14.
I was 13, 14. Yeah.
So what happened here on a daily basis? So you're dealing with the emotions of it, but did things change here in the United States?
Did things change in this country?
Yeah.
like the
Yeah,
vibe?
we geared
School.
up for war. We had Rosie the Riveter.
And you had rationing.
We had rationing. We had
And
the
how about,
draft.
what I remember so vividly was our headlights were half painted black. Yeah. Hey, so when you drove at night, if there was anything up above, they wouldn't see it.
And if you wanted
You
gas,
had
you had to
blackouts.
have a coupon for gas.
Yeah, you had coupons for food,
And
gas.
For 5 years.
Certain foods in this
Yeah.
country, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were
And
rationed.
another thing, all the gentlemen's pants used to have cuffs. And because of the shortage of material, the cuffs disappeared.
I didn't realize
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
And I lived in Brooklyn during that time. We moved to New Jersey in 45. And you sometimes heard gunshots. because the Germans were coming in, to leave off spies in submarines, and they would be coming in, on the, where Coney Island would be, in that area. So you would hear it.
Also, in my lifetime, my parents had to live through the 1929 Depression.
Yeah.
And I was born in 1929, so I didn't really feel it that much. And my father always had good work, so he didn't, he supported his family very nicely. Although there were 4 hungry kids he had to take care of in those days, which really wasn't that easy. And he was an immigrant, and he did not write in English.
That was bad.
That was his downfall.
That was his
to making
Waterloo.
a lot of money in those days, because he always had to hire someone who could translate a contract and do things, and he was a contractor. He used to rent sewing machines, take a loft somewhere, and then people trusted him because they know he was good at his work, so they would give him material, and then he turned that material into product, which could be a snowsuit, bathing suits, whatever he made, pants, and he and the main thing he had to deal with was payroll, because he didn't own the material, he didn't own anything, he just had to pay his rent to the place, rent for the machinery, pay off the girls, and that was the payroll, and the rest was his profit. But he always needed somebody with him who could be a right-hand man and do more in English than he could do. What happened is 3 times, I think, this is the story I was told, the fellow who could speak English and knew how to do the contract, once the payroll got big enough, he disappeared with the payroll.
What about in your life, the biggest page of history,
I think the death of Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. That was like, he was president for 4 years, almost as a king. And when he died, it was like, oh my God, the war wasn't over yet. What is going to happen? And then Truman took over, and he turned out for being a little haberdasher to be quite a president, in my estimation. And I always said that this man will never be considered a good president. As a kid, I said that. He wouldn't be a good president until after he died. And I was at my cousin's bar mitzvah, and I must have been about 19, and we were at the Waldorf, and on the other side of our, room was, we were in the J room, and the big room was a birthday party for Truman, and everybody peeked in, and I said, peek in for my hero. I said, nobody's going to hold me back. And I walked.
Showtime.
I didn't even think of showtime. I just walked right into the, where the dais was, where he was sitting. And he was sitting there with Bess, Eleanor Roosevelt, who's another one of my heroes, and the daughter, and Governor Minor from New Jersey, who they were trying to make a shit up with. And I forgot who else was sitting on the dais. And I went over and shook his hand, Truman's hand, and I wished him a very happy birthday. And everybody looked at me like, oh, isn't she cute? I've been trying to do that today, they would have shot me. But that was, something that happened that I was very excited about. And I don't know, anything else? I think definitely you have to add into what is happening right now. Right now with Trump. And I said this a while back. I said they're going to look at this in history and call it a Shakespearean play. This is like a Macbeth. Who would ever believe this? And I heard it on television, somebody else said it's like a Shakespearean play. But this is, we're living through it now, but this is going to be a footnote in history. that this is unbelievable.
Especially when
We're
a
living
lawyer,
it right
lawyer
now.
goes crazy, cursing everybody on email. The lawyer, from
When
about 2 weeks ago, and this guy all of a sudden on television, who's this man's Trump's right hand man, all of a sudden, and he doesn't have anything but filth in his mouth. It's absolutely insane. Insane. That's horrible.
So whoever is watching this TV, your pictures
Because
here,
again, someone may see it 20 years from
and
now.
this your living history right now. This is the most unbelievable thing
In the
that
year
ever happened to any of
2017.
us right now.